Hey guys, what's up? Darcy here at 6 Strings 9 Lives. Welcome to part 2 of my top 50 heavy metal and hard rock albums of all time. Just like I mentioned in the first video, it was all metal to me. In fact, if I ever got a t-shirt made up for this channel, that's what it would say on the back of the t-shirt. It's all metal to me. So don't get too bent up on the titles and things like that. But I did throw, the word hard rock in here because I guess a couple of these would fall into that category. Maybe not all today, but I think there's one or two. But there will be some in the future 3 videos. And who knows, maybe I'll even expand this further down the line. I did try to restrict this to 1 album per band, only studio albums, so no EPs. But I was thinking too, I made a note that I would do a video on my top 10 favorite EPs. I will do that at some point, definitely in the old notebook. But also just, like I said, just 1 album per band. There's many of these bands that have multiple fantastic albums, but these ones are those special meaning albums. If you missed the first video, these are the ones that kind of paved my way in my metal journey, and have that, whether it be a entry point to a band, a great concert that I saw, something that I saw on Much Music here in Canada where I live, just those little stories. That's why I kind of wanted to restrict this to just 10 per video, because we would have been here all day with 50. So I think that's about it. Yeah, like I said, just it's all metal to me. Call it what you want, but just hang back, watch, maybe get to know me a little bit better. And I love all the comments there in the first video. There's so many, people in and around my age with relatable stories, went to the same tour, saw the same show, same entry point, love that album, things like that which I just, I try to get to all those comments, but sometimes it's tough, but I will get to them. I do appreciate, don't stop commenting, that's for sure. But I read every one of them, and usually a big smile on my face when I'm reading those cool stories. So anyways, let's get started today. We'll continue on, not ranked in any particular order. I said these are tough. Would it be tough to rank them? Yes, there's a few that mean or a little more to me, but overall, you know what, these 50, tie them for number 1 if you want, it doesn't matter. But let's start off today with a little bit of Cinderella. Absolutely a must-have on this list. This is you'll know this album. This is Night Songs. So there's a couple of debuts in this video today. I think I got about 3 debut albums, and I had mentioned in the first video that there's some debut albums that bands just never quite recaptured that. And I believe this is one of those albums. Not that Cinderella didn't do anything good after this, but this was just a special album through and through. Every song was great. I remember, just the intro to Night Songs, kind of like eerie, a little bit, doom and gloom, and then into that slow plodding, and then right into the song. Tommy Kiefer's voice, very special voice as far as I'm concerned. Just awesome. Nobody's Fool, I think that was one of the first singles. Shake Me, great song. I love the deep tracks on this album too. Actually, one of my very favorite songs on this album is called Push Push. 86. Just one of those great albums from 86. Don't get me wrong, they did some good stuff after. They got a little more on the bluesy side. I would say, like Long Cold Winter, for example, if you know the album well, my favorite track off of that album is Fire and Ice, which Fire and Ice easily would have fit on this album. There's many more good songs on that album too. And don't forget to check out their 4th album, which came out a few years later, called Still Climbing. Great album too. So definitely on my top 50, Night Songs from Cinderella. Let's go. You know what? We'll show this one on CD. I do have the cassette for this one. I just didn't dig that one out. As far as AC/DC goes, I could have put a couple of albums on this list. Not the popular ones well, one's pretty popular, I guess. But my favorite AC/DC album is Highway to Hell, to be honest with you. But on this list, I'm going to show you my true introduction to AC/DC. I had discovered them just prior to this, but as far as a studio album, this is the first one that I was standing at the record shop on the day of the release to grab it. And to this day, this is my favorite Brian Johnson album. Yes, I love albums. I'm kind of a Bon Scott guy overall, to be honest with you. Love albums like Highway to Hell, Power Age, stuff like that. But this has always been my favorite Brian Johnson album. And standing at that record shop, picking this up in 1983, this is Flick of the Switch. I remember walking into the record shop and, I bought it on cassette, but I did, I was going through the vinyl and seeing that, the bigger 12-inch cover, and I'm thinking, man, this cover is so cool, so simple, so effective. But this would be something that was drawn on my notebook back in high school. But this is AC/DC, stripped back, self-produced, no big name, no Mutt Lange, stuff like that. And this is one of those albums where there's not a weak track. I love the guitar sound on here. Malcolm, killer job. Angus, of course. And, you got Phil and Phil Rudd, and then, of course, the bass player. I'm going to forget his name, but right now. And then Brian, great singing. But every song is awesome. I like the title track, Rising Power, starts off really cool. One of my two of my absolute favorite tracks on this album. This House is on Fire. That opening guitar riff is, just I know that's bad, but you know what I mean. You know this album, and maybe it's one of your favorite AC/DC albums too. But this has always had a special meaning to me. Yeah, I know Back in Black and all those albums are, million zillion selling albums, but you want a great, solid, top-to-bottom AC/DC album, go grab Flick of the Switch. If for some unknown reason, you've never heard this, go check it out. All right. And sorry about that guitar imitation. It only gets worse from here. All right, let's go to an album and a band that I've talked about many a times on this channel. I've talked many a times about this album, actually. But this is... it is my favorite album from this band. Armored Saint, Symbol of Salvation. This would be one of those, for me, that would be one of those desert island albums for me. Yeah, top to bottom. Every song is good. This album, they actually just recently played this, not recently, but recently released the live version of this. I think the show was pre-COVID, so it was probably around 2018 or 19, but they played this thing top to bottom in its entirety, and great job on that live album. But if you've never heard songs like Rain of Fire, just go check that song out. Last Train Home, Tribal Dance, a couple of what would you call them, deep tracks. That Hanging Judge, title track is fantastic too, by the way. But one of my favorites on here is called Burning Question. So John Bush, right after this album, he went and joined Anthrax for Sound of White Noise. Actually, same guy produced Sound of White Noise. He produced this, Dave Jordan, but that John, I honestly will say he is one of metal's premier vocalists, and to this day can still sing awesome. If you haven't checked out some Armored Saint, here's a good starting point. I mean, their first 4 albums are awesome. Their latest album, called Punching the Sky, from, 2020 or last 2 years anyways. I think it was 2020 or 2021, I forget. Doesn't matter. Punching the Sky. Go check that one out. Yeah, definitely on my top 50 is Symbol of Salvation. All right, let's grab let's grab a little bit of Canadian content. Since that's where I'm from, so I discovered a lot of bands, earlier on, early 80s, right around, like I said in the first video, my I got into Kiss earlier than 1982, but it went away for a little bit, and then I got kind of full blown into, metal and hard rock in 82. And this is one of those albums from 82. And I had mentioned earlier, you might not be getting me showing the best, or because actually this band, I haven't even did a ranking on their albums. That one would be super tough, and maybe you know what's coming, but this is one of my all-time favorite albums, top albums. Rush, Signals, 1982. This just came at the right time in my life. The song Subdivisions, cool lyrics. I mean, Neil was always such a great lyricist. Lyrics like this just stuck home with me. Subdivisions, in the school halls, in the shopping malls, conform or be cast out, subdivisions. All those lyrics. I wasn't, Mr. Popular in high school by any means. And some of those kind of lyrics, when you were trying to find your way in life, you could just relate to them. They, some of them honestly made you feel worse, and some of them picked you up and said, you know what, I am going to find my own way. And this is one of those albums that just, it helped me. It helped shape me. As weird as that sounds, but that is one of those great albums with lots of meaning. Yes, you're right into that kind of synthesizer, keyboard heavy Rush of the 80s. I'm a big fan of pretty much all 4 decades of Rush. They tried different things, and I'll say most of it worked, put it that way. But yeah, Analog Kid, Digital Man, The Weapon, New World Man, Countdown. Yeah, killer album by Rush called Signals, and always love this cover. So simple, but pretty cool. All right, and let's keep on the old Canadian theme. When I started doing these videos, I thought, I forget what I even called myself to begin with, but I thought, I want a cool name for my channel, or something recognizable, nothing too stupid. But I thought, I'm going to name this channel after one of my favorite Helix songs, put my name in front of it, whatever. And it's off of this album, which was this my, No Rest for the Wicked was actually my introduction, but this was my first new release Helix album, Walking the Razor's Edge. And yes, the song right here on the back called 6 Strings, 9 Lives. Love that track. And I thought, you know what? There you go. There's your channel name. Let's, go with that. And of course, if you know Helix, I'm sure at some point you've heard the song Rock You, whether it be at a sporting event or just heard it. Give me an R, O, very infectious song. Definitely very super simple lyrics too. That one is actually written by Bob Helligan Jr., which you would know him for. He's done lots of stuff. Like one other track comes to mind, which would be Judas Priest, Some Heads Are Gonna Roll. He wrote that one. But anyways, yeah, this is a band that I've seen probably 6 or 7 times, all in their heyday. Paul Hackman was tragically killed in a vehicle accident, like a car accident. I think their bus or their van actually flipped over too, or crashed, and Paul was killed. Rest in peace, Paul Hackman. He's awesome guitar player. Of course, Brian Vollmer, great voice. If you're not familiar with Brian's voice, he has a voice like the other guy I would compare Brian to would be Rhett Forrester. Rhett Forrester is very similar voice as Brian, but yeah, top to bottom, great Helix album. If you haven't checked this one out, or I had mentioned No Rest for the Wicked. That's a great album. A Long Way to Heaven, which came out after this. Got a little more commercial on that one, but pretty cool album too. Let's move on to, all right, this is, now if I was showing EPs, I would definitely show the EP for this band, because that was my true introduction to this band. But this would be my first full-length album and has always been one of my favorite albums. I listen to this, you know, I don't know how on a regular basis, but at least once or twice a year at this stage, because I know it so well, it doesn't matter. But this is Queensryche, The Warning. This is, you know, I know they have some great albums, and Operation Mindcrime always gets mentioned. But me personally, I would take Rage for Order and The Warning over Operation Mindcrime. Nothing against it, that's for sure, because it's probably my third favorite anyways. But this was such a unique album when it came out, a unique sound, little bit of Iron Maiden comparisons with the guitar melodies, things like that. But what a special voice Jeff Tate was back then. You know, of course, you know, the whole shit show that is Queensryche over the years, but you can't take this album away from these guys. This is just top to bottom, and I know I've said that a lot, but I just love listening to this album, right from Warning to No Sanctuary, Take Hold of the Flame. I think that was the very first video. Child of Fire, Roads to Madness, a real classic, you know, in progressive metal, you know, if you want to start sub-genreing everything, that would be kind of in the progressive side of things. But always been one of my favorites. Probably Rage for Order could easily make this list, but we're not going to do a bunch of repeats. But maybe if we expand the list, we will add things like that in. All right, let's switch gears to some thrash. There was a comment in the first video about Bonsai Records here in Canada, and I remember going to those record shops. Probably 80, well, yeah, it would have been 85, probably around 85. Place called A&A Records, where I used to live. They had a full bin of everything Bonsai. I'm talking Venom, Metallica, Megadeth, you know, Anthrax, Fistful of Metal. And I discovered this one in here too. This is a pure thrashterpiece in my eyes. This is Exodus, Bonded by Blood. Here's my original cassette on Bonsai Records. And this is the only studio album with Paul Bailoff on vocals. You know what? He was not the greatest singer, but he was a showman. Their live concerts were legendary, but he does have a great voice for this music. And the whole guitar tone on this album is off the charts. I don't know how to explain it. It's just phenomenal album. It is relentless start to finish. This one came out in 85, but I believe this album was already in the can, I think in 83 or 84, but the delays or whatever happened. But this one definitely needs to be heard if you're a thrash fan. My favorite song to this day always will be Metal Command. Again, the guitar tone, just awesome. What other tracks? Yeah, Bonded by Blood, A Lesson in Violence, great track. Piranha, Deliver Us to Evil. Top to bottom, definite thrashterpiece. This would be, for me, I already told you in my previous video, well, maybe you haven't watched it yet, but I showed Testament, The Legacy, which is my all-time favorite thrash album. Bonded by Blood would definitely be in that top 4 for sure. That's definitely where I would see this one. Top 4 favorite thrash albums of all time. That one would be in it. All right. Sometimes I've met a few people that, you know, on here that play guitar and things like that, and they ask you question, have you ever done anything, played guitar? Or I actually played the bass guitar. We'll say that very loosely. I didn't do very well. I think I honestly just wanted to own a guitar, and it happened to be a bass guitar because I was a big fan of Blackie Lawless, because actually my first bass guitar was a BC Rich Warlock, and big fan of Blackie Lawless. You know, big fan of Gene Simmons and, you know, his style of playing, which is, you know, kind of loosey-goosey type of playing. And I was a big fan of Rudy Sarzo from Quiet Riot. And I always, you know, when I first heard Metal Health, boom, 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 you know, that bass line, I was just like, oh man, I want to, not that that's a hard piece to learn on bass, but I thought, just great. Never looked back. Here is Quiet Riot, Metal Health. This was one of those, you know, cementing my metal journey, like even, you know, even more solid. This is my original cassette back in the day. Yeah, I think this one is aged just fine. I listened to it again. One of those albums that I'll pull out once a year at this point. But Metal Health, Come On Feel the Noise. I'm not super big on the cover track, but you know, that one and the other one on Condition Critical, you know, it helped them along. But at the time, to be honest with you, for all we know, this was their debut album, which, you know, that's not the case. There was 2 albums to come out before this, but really for us, this pretty much was obviously our introduction to Quiet Riot. But check out some deep tracks. I love's a Bitch. That is one of my favorite songs on here. Slick Black Cadillac, very cool. And Let's Get Crazy. And I do like the follow-up, Condition Critical, really good album. I don't have everything from Quiet Riot in my collection, but man, this one definitely has one of those special spots in my heart and metal journey. Okay, so we already showed that one. What do we got left? We got 2 more to go. There's a couple of bigger bands, like so I talked a little bit about Judas Priest in the first video. Never really got into Priest till about 82, so by that time they already had 6 or 7 albums out, and never really got into Saxon until their 4th album, which Denim and Leather, which came out, this one came out in 81, so I would have been a little late to this one, but not too much. Got all fired up from the video Denim and Leather that they played repeatedly on the Pepsi Power Hour. And then you get into great tracks like Princess of the Night. A couple deep tracks on here that are really, Fire in the Sky, that is an awesome song. And the bands played on, Rough and Ready, Play It Loud. And pretty much a Saxon fan my whole life. I didn't get, probably in the 2000s, I had to backtrack actually to get a few of their albums. I didn't get everyone in and around their release day, just the time of my life, and whether it would be finances or at the time, or just couldn't get everything. But since I have everything that excuse me, that Saxon has ever put out, but this is really my true first Saxon album that I ever owned, and this is an original copy. Not my original copy, but this is as they say, an OG. Definitely good condition, but Saxon's still going. One of those bands, and I didn't even mention that, but a lot of these bands, again, still going to this day. And I thought about that the other day. I thought, you know what was I thinking, let's say 35 years ago, what was I thinking this far ahead and thinking, are these guys all going to be around, or what am I going to be listening to? I've never really sat back to think about that, but now that here we are, 35 or 40 years later, still glad to be on board. So let's wrap this one up with Well, if you watch my channel, you know I'm a big Merciful Fate fan, King Diamond. Merciful Fate was actually really scary shit back in the day for me. I was probably even too scared to buy it, if that makes any sense. And really didn't discover Merciful Fate till a little bit after I discovered King Diamond. I was on board with Abigail. That was my first new release. Then I picked up Them the year after, which would have been 87. Thought that one was not as good as Abigail, little thin on the production. And I thought, I'm going to give it one more try. And also the other part was Them had a 2-part story. And this is the second part, and a phenomenal album. And worthy of making my top 50. This is King Diamond Conspiracy. Always love this cover. I think it's fantastic. I'm not really a horror guy or stuff like that, but I do love King Diamond. What am I going to tell you? Great tracks. Go check out At the Graves, Sleepless Nights. What a killer video for that. Awesome song. Yes, King's voice is an acquired taste, and like I said before, I've acquired the taste. Check out another couple of my favorite tracks. Amon Belongs to Them. Superb. Awesome. And then it wraps up to Let It Be Done, right into this cremation. And then the album ends, but always been one of my favorite King Diamond albums, Conspiracy. And there you go. That wraps up part 2 of my top 50. Again, no particular order, just to throw in a few stories in there, here and there. But hope you enjoyed that one, and I will see you in part 3. And until next time, stay heavy.